I'm Presbyterian. Boy, that's down the middle of the road, folks, in all fairness. I mean, Seventh-day Adventist, I don't know about. I just don't know about.
Again, the separation of church and state is not in the Constitution.
I have in front of me Religious Liberty Commission report, and we're going to be talking about that today. Friends, stay tuned. I want to be fair in my assessment of this. So I went through the whole thing, combed through it, look at some major points, and I'm going to share with you what I have discovered. Friends, you need to watch this video till the end because Ben Carson said a few things here that
It's in all those places, but we're not supposed to talk about it. Maybe we need to see a psychiatrist.
We're going to talk about that as well. Okay, let's just leave it that way. There's a lot being said in this particular report, and I'm going to share part of the videos as well, and I got some other insights to share with you. And link to the entire presentation is in the description of the video under download my notes. You can have these absolutely free as well. By the way, if you happen to be new to AMC, make sure you like and subscribe and click the bell icon because we upload videos every single day of the week, and we have a lot of good things going on here. So if you enjoy what you are hearing, show some support by commenting below, like below, and check out the rest of the link that I have in the descriptions of this video as well. Now, let's get to it. This is the report, and I'm going to share with you some very interesting things that I've discovered, 224 pages long. According to USA Today, controversial Trump Religious Liberty Commission release report. Now, for today's video, I'm going to come about this in 3 different ways. Let me put that on the screen for you. Number one, we're going to look at the proposition, the opposition, and the deception. So now, let's begin with number 1, the proposition. So here is what it says here. Department of Justice on June 20th released the Religious Liberty Commission draft report following a series of hearings in which commissioners and witnesses raised concern about topics including anti-Semitism, religious freedom in public education, and a perceived weaponization of the law against Christians under former administration. And it went on to say, at the time it was established in 2025, the commission was tasked with publishing a report on the history and state of religious liberty in the nation by July 4th, 2026. The White House said the report will highlight parental rights in religious education, school choice, conscientious protection, attacks on houses of worship, free speech for religious entities, and institutional autonomy. Now, let's consider some of the major propositions highlighted in this report. Let's begin with number 1. I have about 6 of them. Religious liberty is presented as a public good, not merely a private benefit. This is found on page 12. The report says religious liberty enriches civic life through education, healthcare, charity, civic engagement, and moral formation. Number 2, the report says religious voices should not be silenced in public life. It states that the Constitution neither requires nor permits religious voice to be silenced. Number 3, religious liberty protects both believers and unbelievers. In page 13, this is found. The report says religious liberty protects believers and unbelievers alike and strengthens communities and civic life. Number 4, it recognizes the important service of faith-based institutions. The report notes that the religious communities establish schools, hospitals and charities, orphanages, shelters, and adoptions ministries, food banks, and other institutions to serve society. The report says it calls for education about religious liberty rights. This is found on page 13 and as well as page 205. The report says protecting religious liberty requires more than lawsuits. It requires cultivating a culture that understands why those rights exist. It also recommends FAGs, trainings, toolkits, and know your rights posters. Number 6, it recommends practical protection for students, parents, teachers, religious leaders, healthcare workers, and military members. This is found in page 22 and 23 and also page 205. The report recommends know your rights, posters, FAGs, written explanation when someone is accused of improper religious expression, or online portals for religious liberty violations. Now, in all fairness, what do you agree with and disagree with about what is being proposed by the Religious Commission report? I would like to hear your thought below. Robert Barron, Bishop of Wanama, Manchester, said this: I respect President Trump very much. He is the president in my lifetime who's done the most for the defense of religious liberty.
President, I'm very grateful to you as well. The commission was a wonderful year. I enjoyed the meetings very much, and the witnesses were very impressive. People that we heard. I'm struck as I stand in this historic place looking over the portrait of James Madison. We spent a lot of time talking about the First Amendment. No one in this commission wants an established religion, but we all want the free exercise of religion. We sense that being limited in different ways.
And Patrick had this to say on X as well. Today, I was in Washington, D.C. to present President Trump with the Religious Liberty Commission report and our recommendations. Over the past year, our commission held 7 hearings and heard testimonies from over 100 witnesses from education and military healthcare, the private sector, and government. They share firsthand account of how the religious liberty had been violated. Many have already won their cases before the Supreme Court, while others are still fighting in the courts. Based on the testimony we've heard, that the commission's findings that Americans' religious freedom were being denied based on the fictitious claim that the separation of church and state is found in the Constitution. As a result, we presented President Trump with 12 recommendations to strengthen and restore religious liberty in America. Dr. Ben Carson had this to say on X as well. Thank you, POTUS, for convening the White House Religious Liberty Commission. The greatest threat to religious freedom today may be public misunderstanding about it, but this commission, under the guidance of the Trump administration, is working to change that. Religious liberty is fundamental to our identity as a nation. It's something that must be fought for and preserved. The opposition. So you heard what the proposition was and how some of the religious leaders are responding to that. Well, let's talk about the opposition. What exactly are they saying? Now, the first concern that is being highlighted all over the internet is the issue when it comes to the union of church and state. Now, let's first hear this AP News. Trump's commission urged bridges between church and state in sweeping draft report. Dan Patrick challenges separation of church and state through federal policy proposal. Now, let's take a minute to listen to what Dan Patrick had to say in a light of what this article is saying.
Mr. President, could I just say one last thing?
Yes, please.
On the issue of church and state, that was used as a hammer against almost all of our witnesses. One of the important recommendations that we made, if that happens in the future, if any superior person in the military, a superintendent of a school district, someone in the healthcare system, whoever uses that against someone who is simply standing up for their religious liberty or simply praying in public, that within a short amount of time, if they allege separation of church and state, that public official must, in writing, explain how that person has violated the Constitution. Because, again, the separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. And from this day forward, if anyone says that to you, and they're in public office, or serve in any agency in any official capacity, they have to point out exactly where you have violated the Constitution, because you have not. And from this day forward, that phrase should have no power over people of all faiths ever again in America.
Thank you.
All right, these are some serious, interesting thoughts, and we're not here to argue this position today. We've already done that, and if you haven't heard this side, I would recommend a number of videos to you. Right at the top, I'm going to post those for you as well. Check them out. We spent time breaking this down already, but let's continue, because we got to get to the part where Dr. Ben Carson said the things that, I mean, friends, I was just like, no, he didn't just say that. Did he just say that? Anyway, let me get back to the report here. Let me come down. Here is the thing. FFRF also on X had this to say. The so-called Religious Liberty Commission report isn't about protecting religious liberty freedom. It's a blueprint for privileging liberty, dismantling church and state separation, and using government power to advance Christian nationalism. Real religious liberty protects everyone. Jared Huffman, congressman for California North Coast, had this to say regarding the report and the meetings that was held with President Trump. Take a listen.
Hey folks, some hot takes on the breaking news that Donald Trump's sham Commission on Religious Liberty has now released its final report and recommendations. And no surprise, they recommend being done with church-state separation, moving us closer to a right-wing theocracy, government funding for churches, much more overt religion in government, etc. Look, at the very beginning, when Donald Trump announced this commission in the Rose Garden, he said the quiet part out loud. He said church-state separation may not be a good thing. And then he stacked this commission with right-wing Christian nationalist extremists. This is not a serious group, and it has never been a serious process. From the start, there were warnings from faith groups, interfaith groups, and secular groups that this was going to be a sham, that this was all about politics. So, look, our country was founded on the ideal of church-state separation and secular government to protect us against religious tyranny. We do not have one national religion, as much as these folks want you to believe that we do. We are a country of many faiths and people with no faith. That's what religious freedom is all about. It's served us really well for 250 years. And let me tell you that my Free Thought Caucus colleagues and I are going to do everything we can to make sure that that bedrock of secular governance and the freedoms that it protects remains strong going forward.
Now, I'll be honest with you. I understand what the opposition are saying. And I do take a concern when it comes to the union of church and state as well. But based on the report itself, in the light of the substance that are being discussed, there's not much there for me to argue against. And also, when it comes to the political left and the way that they have behaved, they don't really have much of a case to argue that position. I'm going to explain. Let me play this video for you that's going to tell you exactly what I'm thinking right now. Take a listen to what this man is saying.
You can't force Christianity on us. Y'all forced drag queen story time on kindergartners. Y'all forced high school girls to compete against gender-confused boys with dick and balls. The left forces LGBT gender studies on elementary schoolers. Y'all can spawn camp children to brainwash them into believing that they're trans so that they can become avatars of Baphomet. But you draw the line at the Bible. You have an outrage at the Bible, not of sexualizing children, not gender-confusing children, spawn camping them so that they grow up with your ideologies, forcing it onto them at a very young age. You have an issue with the biblical scriptures. Well, I can't wait for your child to read Proverbs, because I don't give a freak about what some gender-confused transsexual communist with 17 flags in their bio who thinks that an anal cavity is a sex organ has to say about literally anything. Leftist ideas can only exist in an echo chamber. They can only exist where any sort of diversity of thought is condemned and their ideology is protected and exalted. Every single leftist outrage is completely manufactured and performative. What's more damaging to a child's mind? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want? Or, yes, Alexis, you're 11 years old and every single delusion that you have in your brain is real. Yeah, you are a two-spirited fox demon. You can't get a tattoo yet because that's bad, but you can take testosterone. Go ahead and take puberty blockers and become completely sterile and mentally unstable. Because we care about the kids. The left is so heavy-handed with pushing all of their psycho ideologies into everything they can get their hands on. Politics, video games, public schools, magazines, Netflix shows, it doesn't matter. And they can't create their own new stuff because they are creatively bankrupt. And everything that leftists represent is anything that is oppositional to Donald Trump, because the left has no North Star anymore. They are devolving and being completely colonized by radical race-baiting, America-hating, Muslim-sympathizing communists. That's why all of your favorite stuff, Star Wars, Halo, Call of Duty, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, they have to colonize everything that people already liked because they were untouched by the liberal mind virus, and force their ideologies into it because they can't manufacture their own audiences. And normal, God-fearing Americans, we get one W. We get one. You have to read the Bible in school, and they lose their minds because they hate everything good, everything righteous, everything holy, and everything normal. And they know that the Bible is the #1 weapon against their Satanism. They can't fight it. They can't compete with it. They have to silence it. W Texas, I'm a new proud Texan.
So my question is, which one you want, right? You're going to go with the political right, far into the arms of Christian nationalism, or you're going to go with the political left, far into the arms of social Marxism? How about neither? How about neither? However, based on my examination of that report on face value, it is actually strengthening and protecting religious liberty. Now, you can say primarily for Christians. Well, it's because many Christians' religious liberty were violated under a left-wing agenda. That doesn't mean the political rights are always good either.
The overwhelming majority of our witnesses said that they were attacked and punished, and what was used against them was one phrase that's not in the Constitution, and that phrase is separation of church and state. The left has used that one phrase that was one line out of one of hundreds of letters by Thomas Jefferson to batter and hammer people of faith for the last 70 to 80 years. And this report will speak very clearly that we want to be sure Americans understand that they cannot be attacked by that phrase any longer. So we have 12 recommendations. I'll read the first 6. My great Vice Chairman will read the next 6, and then members will speak to these issues. So, Mr. President, recommendation number 1, instruct the Department of Justice to issue guidance clarifying the proper understanding of the Establishment Clause and the separation of church and state. Number 2, the Department of Justice, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission shall issue Know Your Rights posters for students, parents, public teachers, administrators, religious leaders, religious institutions, healthcare workers, and military service members. And we talked about religious liberty and that no president in our history has stood more for God than this president. He has been unashamed to speak the word of Jesus. He's been unashamed to speak up for all faiths. And he established this commission so that we would assure Americans their religious liberty, that this great inheritance from our founding fathers would continue for another 250 years. And Mr. President, we believe this will be one of your greatest legacies.
And this does not mean automatically those on the political right are always going to protect your religious liberty either. But one thing is certain, they are the ones who are fighting for it now, unlike the political left who were violating it. And that is a fact. But for those of us who understand Bible prophecy, we know that both left and right are going to unite to violate religious liberty for God's people anyway. So let's get back to this video. Let's talk about the deception now. So here are some of the areas where I take some concerns. First, let's talk about the Sabbath references in the report. You may be asking, does it have things to say about the Sabbath in the report? The answer is yes, it does. And it's really interesting. At least 4 different times it refers to the Sabbath. Now, let's go now to understand this a little bit better. The report mentions Sabbaths 4 times. It does not mention, and I want to be very clear and very fair, it does not mention seventh day or Saturday as the Sabbath. And it speaks about Sunday, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too. Let's keep listening. Now, here's the first reference for Sabbath in the report. It is found in page 18. There is an executive summary in the report about the military and the Sabbath. It says service members should be able to abide by kosher and Sabbath restrictions and maintain religious attire, grooming standard. Number 2, reference of the Sabbath is in chapter 3, page 56, is based on institution, prison ministry. It says the following. It speaks on faith-based institutions, prison ministries. For example, it speaks of Rabbi Aaron Lipskar, discusses Jewish inmates needing accommodation for prayer, diet, clothing, holidays, and Sabbath observance. Number 3, it speaks of the Sabbath in chapter 7. America's war fighters deserve better. This is also in page 105. There it referenced Abraham Lincoln calling for the orderly observance of the Sabbath in military history. Now, what's interesting about that one, when you do go to the historical record for that one, what you will find, Abraham Lincoln primarily was a Sunday keeper, although he respected the Sabbath keeping for other faiths as well. But he was a Sunday keeper. But nevertheless, it's just an observance. It's no big deal. But nevertheless, that's what the report shows when it comes to the Sabbath. Number 4, in the Appendix D, it details recommendations private sectors is also printed in page 223. It recommends EEOC support for employment, religious accommodation, including Sabbath observance, religious attire, and vaccine requirements. So to be fair with you, this is all that it says about the Sabbath. I'm not going to make it say something that it does not say. And, I do understand the prophecies, but that report this does not say much about either legislating a Sabbath, none of that. I just want to be clear and I want to be fair about that. However, is the next question, is the Sunday law mentioned in the report? And the answer to that, it is no. The report does not directly speak about a Sunday law. It does not. Now, you know what's crazy? You're going to hear people online telling you the exact opposite. I just want to let you, I'm just going to be fair. Here in Advent Media Connect, we watch the prophecies, we pay attention to what's happening, but we should not be doing false reporting of Bible prophecy to drive a particular narrative because it is written in the Word of God. I think we have to be fair. Say it for what it is, oppose things how we need to oppose, share our thoughts and perspective on things. But when we talk about a particular document or report, we should not insert our prophetic view or expectation into the thing if it does not say it. And I just want to be fair and clear about that. The report does not directly speak about a Sunday law. Now, here is the thing. The word Sunday appears in the report only in connection with Easter Sunday, describing a church service that was disrupted by protesters. It says the agitators returned a week later on Easter Sunday, the holiest day of the year for Christian. You can find this on page 158 of the report, and I've done my research on this. However, let's talk about Dr. Ben Carson. Before we do that, remember what President Trump said when he was running the first time, 2016, about Dr. Ben Carson's religion?
I'm Presbyterian. Can you believe it? Nobody believes I'm Presbyterian. I'm Presbyterian. I'm Presbyterian. Boy, that's down the middle of the road, folks, in all fairness. I mean, Seventh-day Adventist, I don't know about. I just don't know about.
And then I'm going to play the segment where Dr. Ben Carson spoke about religious liberty and said the following things.
And Mr. President, we just want to thank you, first of all, for appointing us to this commission. And secondly, for your steadfast dedication to religious liberty. I don't think anybody has done as much as you have. Maybe not everybody else put together. And some people in the beginning thought it was just fake, it was just politics, but you've been steadfast throughout the whole thing. And it's a big part of America. Our founding document says that our rights come from our Creator and not from government. And people who try to divorce us from that heritage, do they realize that that's in our founding document? Do they realize that our Pledge of Allegiance says we are one nation under God? Do they realize that many courtrooms in the land on the wall it says in God we trust? That every coin in their pocket, every bill in their wallet says in God we trust? So if it's in all those places, but we're not supposed to talk about it, maybe we need to see a psychiatrist.
Thank you.
You know, I don't know how much of this he actually believes. Maybe he doesn't mean that. Maybe, I mean, to me, I'm like, Dr. Ben Carson, come on, man. You read The Great Controversy. What are you doing? You know, so, but nevertheless, I understand. It feels like, are we losing Dr. Ben Carson or have we already lost him? It seems like he's becoming more aligned with some of these political views, and I'm very concerned. We should be praying, not condemning, because God can still use him. But when I listen to some of the stuff he is saying about religious liberty, and as a Seventh-day Adventist, I'm like, why are you saying that?
Separation of church and state. You know, the Constitution says nothing about separation of church and state, by the way. That's been distorted tremendously.
The question is simply this. Could this go too far? Could this go too far? And I want to answer with what Dr. Ben Carson said on CBN. It was about a year ago. And he was being interviewed here, and they asked him a question at the end, and he responded by saying, and this was based on some of the supposed revivals that were happening, and he said the following words regarding that. Let's play that segment for you.
Age, income, gender, religion, political affiliation, you name it, divide them, have them at each other's throats while they carry out their nefarious purposes.
Well, I lied because now I have another question, and this is the final question. Are you confident that we can win that battle and stop that division from happening?
I'm very confident. My only concern is not that we're going to be victorious, but that we will go too far. That we will decide that we need to legislate morality. That has happened in the past, as you know. And it's created some of the greatest issues of bloodshed in mankind's history. We don't want to go there.
What does this tell you? He knows exactly what the Bible says. He knows exactly what the spirit of prophecy teaches. He knows the prophetic events. And I appreciate when he shared this view that, he's concerned that we could go too far, and he knows that this is going to go too far. So I don't know if the Religious Liberty Commission report is laying the groundwork for this. I cannot say this for certain. There's times prophetically there's win and losses in things. And I do not want to misconstrue or mischaracterize an effort to protect religious liberty and start saying they're going to take away religious liberty. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's not what it shows, at least for my examination of the document. It's not a long document to read. It's 224, and there's ways you can actually get to the main point. And it's for religious liberty. It's actually not against religious liberty. If somebody tells you otherwise, they're not telling you the truth. Now, cool things change. Cool things go too far. And the answer is yes, prophetically, things are going to go too far. And it's going to take a crisis. It's not just going to happen just because of some men wanting to take it away. It's not going to happen like that. That's not what Bible prophecy teaches. Now, here is the thing, and I really appreciate the thought and perspective of everyone. I want to be fair and balanced in my review of this matter. But here is the quotation I want to end with. The Sunday movement is now making its way in darkness. The leaders are concealing the true issue, and many who unite in a movement do not themselves see whether the undercurrent is standing. They are working in blindness. They do not see if a Protestant government sacrificed the principles that have made them a free, independent nation, and through legislation brings into the Constitution principles that will propagate papal falsehoods and papal delusion. They are plunging into the Roman horrors of the Dark Ages.
But that we will go too far.
Yes, Dr. Penn Carson, this will go too far. These are my thoughts and perspective. What do you say? Like and subscribe to the page, click the bell icon for more. Let's have the conversation in the chat below. I'm anxious to hear your thoughts. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.